Table 14 needs someone, now. My manager's voice was sharp. I looked at table 14, and my stomach dropped. 6 people, all in suits. The kind of suits that cost more than 3 months of my rent. They were laughing loudly, ordering expensive wine, radiating that specific energy of people who expect perfection and punish anything less. And in the middle of them sat an older woman. Quiet, hands folded, eyes down. She looked like she'd rather be anywhere else. Brianna, did you hear me? Table 14. Can someone else take it? Marcus is free. Marcus is on break. You're up, move. I grabbed my notepad, wiped my palms on my apron, and walked toward the table that was about to ruin my night. Let me tell you something about myself. I'm not good with people. I know that sounds strange for someone who works as a waitress, but it's true. I took this job because I needed money, not because I'm charming or outgoing or any of the things that make you good at customer service. I'm shy, painfully shy. The kind of shy where my voice gets quiet when I'm nervous and my hands shake when too many people look at me at once. The kind of shy that made school a nightmare and job, interviews torture, and every social situation a test I felt destined to fail. But I needed this job. After my grandmother died, I was alone. No family, no safety net, no backup plan. Just me, a one-room apartment, and a job at a restaurant that catered to people who would never know my name. I approached table 14. Good evening, welcome to. Finally, one of the men interrupted. We've been waiting. I apologize, can I start you with? We've already ordered drinks. The other server took care of it. We need to order food now. We have a reservation across town in 2 hours. He didn't look at me when he spoke. None of them did. I was furniture. A means to an end. I wrote down their orders as fast as I could. Filet mignon, lobster, special requests and modifications and substitutions that made my hand cramp trying to keep up. And then I got to the older woman. She hadn't spoken, hadn't even looked up from her menu. The man beside her, dark hair, sharp jaw, expensive watch, leaned over. My mother will have the salmon, no sauce, steamed vegetables. Of course, and would she like? That's all, thank you. I wrote it down. But something made me pause. The woman still hadn't looked up. And the man hadn't asked her what she wanted. He'd just decided. Ma'am, I said gently, is salmon all right with you? The man's eyes snapped to me. I just told you what she'll have. I know, I just wanted to make sure. She's deaf. He said it like a door closing. Like that explained everything. Like that made her invisible. I looked at the woman. She was watching me now. Her eyes were dark brown, intelligent, alert. And behind them, I saw something I recognized. Loneliness. Before I could think about it, before I could stop myself, my hands moved. Would you like salmon, or something else? I signed the words. Slowly. Carefully. The way my grandmother had taught me when I was 6 years old. The woman's face transformed. Not dramatically, not with a gasp or a cry. Just a slow softening. A light coming on behind her eyes. You sign. Her hands moved with the fluidity of a lifetime of practice. Yes, I signed back. My grandmother was deaf. She raised me. She raised you well. The table had gone silent. The man beside her, her son, I assumed, was staring at me with an expression I couldn't read. The salmon, she signed. Is it good here? Honestly, the chicken is better. The salmon is sometimes overcooked. She smiled. A real smile. Then I'll have the chicken. I turned to the man. She'd prefer the chicken, actually. He blinked. She told you that? Yes. Something shifted in his face. He looked at his mother. Then back at me. And for the first time, he really saw me. The chicken then, he said quietly. Thank you. I put in the orders. Returned to my other tables. Tried to forget about the strange moment that had just happened. But I couldn't shake the look in that woman's eyes. The surprise. The gratitude. Like being seen was something she'd stopped expecting. 20 minutes later, I brought the food. As I set down the woman's plate, she touched my wrist. Gently. Like she was afraid I might pull away. What's your name? Brianna. That's beautiful. I'm Margaret. She held my gaze for a moment. And then she signed something that made my breath catch. Thank you for not treating me like I'm invisible. I didn't know what to say. So I just signed back. You're not invisible, not to me. When I walked away, I felt eyes on me. The sun was watching. His face was different now. The arrogance was gone. In its place was something rawer. Something that looked almost like pain. The rest of the dinner was normal. I checked on them a few times. Each time I signed a few words to Margaret. Is everything okay? Or do you need anything? And each time she responded with that same quiet warmth. The other people at the table ignored me. But Margaret's son didn't. He watched every interaction. And something in his expression kept changing. When they finished, I brought the check. The total was over $2,000. I didn't flinch. I'd seen bigger tabs. The son paid, without looking at the bill. Black card, quick signature, the kind of transaction that meant nothing to him. But before they left, he stood up. Walked toward me. What's your name? Brianna. Brianna. He repeated it like he was memorizing it. How long have you known sign language? My whole life. My grandmother was deaf. And she raised you. Yes, she passed away last year. His face softened. I'm sorry. Thank you. He was quiet for a moment. Then, my mother has been coming to restaurants with me for 15 years. Business dinners, social events, charity functions. 15 years of sitting at tables, surrounded by people who don't speak her language. He paused. Tonight is the first time I've seen her smile in. I can't remember how long. I didn't know what to say. She used to be the life of every room, he continued. Before my father died, before the hearing world became too hard to navigate, she used to light up spaces, but somewhere along the way she just retreated, and I didn't know how to bring her back. He looked over at his mother. She was watching us, waiting. You did something tonight that I haven't been able to do in years. You made her feel seen. I shook my head. I didn't do anything special. I just talked to her. No. You didn't just talk to her. You talked to her in her language. In a world that refuses to meet her where she is, you did. That's not small. That's everything. He reached into his jacket, pulled out a business card, placed it in my hand. I don't know what your plans are, but if you ever want more than this, he gestured around the restaurant, call that number. I looked at the card. Jonathan Carter. Carter Industries. My heart stopped. Carter Industries. The tech company valued at $14 billion. The man standing in front of me wasn't just wealthy. He was one of the richest people in the city. I'm not looking for charity, I said. This isn't charity. This is recognizing value. There's a difference. He walked back to the table, helped his mother out of her chair. And as they passed me on the way out, Margaret stopped. Will I see you again? I didn't know how to answer. I hope so, I signed. She smiled, squeezed my hand, and they were gone. I stood there for a long moment, holding a business card that felt like a ticket to another universe. I didn't call. Not that night. Not the next day. I put the card in a drawer and told myself it was too good to be true. That I'd misread the situation. That people like Jonathan Carter didn't actually hire people like me. A week passed. I kept working, kept serving tables, kept going home to my empty apartment and my grandmother's picture on the nightstand. And then they came back. A Thursday evening. I saw them walk in. Jonathan and Margaret. Just the two of them this time. They requested me specifically. "Brianna," Jonathan stood as I approached. "I wasn't sure you still worked here. Where else would I be? I gave you my card." "I know. You didn't call. I didn't think you were serious." He looked at me with something like frustration, but not directed at me. At the situation. At whatever had taught me not to believe in opportunities. "Sit down. I'm working. For 5 minutes, please." I looked around. My manager was watching, but he wasn't moving to stop me. Jonathan Carter's presence had that effect. I sat. "I want to tell you something," Jonathan said, "and I want you to really hear it." He leaned forward. "My mother lost her hearing when she was 32. A virus. It happened overnight. One day she could hear, the next she couldn't. My father learned sign language immediately. He became fluent within a year, but after he died, it was just me and I." He stopped, looked away. "I never learned." The words hung in the air. I kept meaning to. I took a class once, dropped out after 2 weeks. Too busy building the company, too focused on deals and acquisitions and things that seemed more important at the time. He looked at his mother. She was watching him with patient, knowing eyes. I hired interpreters. I told myself that was enough, that I was providing for her, protecting her, taking care of her. But I wasn't really talking to her. Not the way you did, not the way she deserves. Margaret reached across the table, touched her son's hand, and signed something slowly, making sure I could see. "I don't need you to be perfect. I just need you to try." Jonathan's jaw tightened. And for a moment, I saw behind the billionaire. Behind the suits and the cards and the power. I saw a man who missed his father. A man who had tried to fill an unfillable hole with work. A man who had been failing the person he loved, most without even knowing it. "I'm learning now," he said to his mother. "Finally, I'm learning." He turned to me. "That's why I came back. That's why I'm here. Because watching you with her that night, it showed me what I'd been missing, what I'd been denying her." He reached into his jacket again. This time, not a business card. An envelope. "This isn't charity," he said again. "This is a job offer. We're starting a program at Carter Industries. Deaf and hard of hearing inclusion. Communication training. Making our company accessible in ways it should have been from the start." He slid the envelope toward me. "I want you to lead it." I stared at the envelope. "I'm a waitress. You're someone who sees people. That's rarer than any degree. I don't have experience. Then you'll learn, the way I'm learning, the way we all have to learn." Margaret was signing something. I watched her hands. "Say yes, please. I want to see you again." I looked at her kind eyes, at the hope in her face, and I realized something. This wasn't about me deserving it. This was about whether I was brave enough to accept it. "Can I think about it?" Jonathan nodded. "Take all the time you need. But Brianna," he caught my eye, "don't take too long. People like you don't come around often, and people like me are finally smart enough to recognize it." They left that night with the envelope still on the table. I took it home, read it 7 times, cried twice, and called the number the next morning. That was 3 years ago. Today, I run the Accessibility and Inclusion Division at Carter Industries. 47 employees, programs in 12 offices, partnerships with deaf communities across the country. I make more money than I ever imagined. But that's not the part that matters. The part that matters is Margaret. She comes to the office once a week. We have lunch together. She tells me stories about her husband, about raising Jonathan, about a world that slowly stopped being able to hear her. And I tell her about my grandmother, about growing up in silence, about the way love doesn't need sound. Jonathan learned sign language. It took him 18 months. He's not perfect. His grammar is choppy and he sometimes signs too fast, but he tries. Every day he tries. And Margaret cries every time they have a real conversation. Not from sadness, from the feeling of finally being met. Last month, the company held a gala. 500 people, black tie, the kind of event I used to serve food at. Jonathan gave a speech about inclusion, about accessibility, about seeing people. And at the end, he called me to the stage. "This woman," he said, "taught me something I should have learned decades ago. That being successful isn't about what you build. It's about who you see, who you value, who you refuse to leave behind." He looked at me. "Brianna, you were a shy waitress who talked to my mother when no one else would. And that small act of kindness changed everything. For her, for me, for this entire company." The room was silent. 500 people. Not a sound. And then Margaret stood up. Slowly. She walked to the stage. And in front of everyone, in front of a room that couldn't understand her, she signed. "Thank you for seeing me. Thank you for reminding my son how to see me too." I translated, word by word. And by the time I finished, half the room was crying. Here's what I've learned. Success isn't loud. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't walk in with business cards and expensive suits. Sometimes success is quiet. Sometimes it's a scared waitress who almost didn't approach a table. Sometimes it's a conversation in a language most people never bother to learn. Sometimes it's seeing someone who's been invisible and deciding they matter. I wasn't special that night. I was just present. I just paid attention. I just saw a woman who needed to be seen, and I saw her. That's not a skill you learn in business school. That's a choice you make. Every day. In every interaction. Who are you not seeing? Who's sitting at your table, invisible, waiting for someone to notice? Who's been reduced to their disability, their title, their appearance, while everything underneath goes unwitnessed? That's the question that changed my life. Not how do I get ahead? Not how do I prove myself? But who am I not seeing, and what would happen if I did? My grandmother used to tell me something. She'd sign it every night before bed. The world is full of noise, but kindness is always quiet. Be quiet enough to be kind. I didn't understand it when I was young. I thought she was talking about volume. But she wasn't. She was talking about attention. About slowing down. About being present enough to notice what everyone else is too busy to see. Margaret teaches me the same lesson every week. In her silence. In her patience. In the way she waits for people to notice her instead of demanding it. The world is full of people like Margaret. People who have been overlooked so many times, they've stopped expecting to be seen. People who have retreated because the world is too loud, too fast, too indifferent. People who are waiting, quietly, patiently, for someone to slow down and meet them where they are. You don't need to be rich to do that. You don't need power or connections or a business card. You just need to pay attention. To slow down. To see. That's all I did. And it changed everything. Not because I was special, but because seeing people is so rare that when you do it, it feels like a miracle. It shouldn't be rare, but it is. And until that changes, every small act of attention is revolutionary. So here's what I want to ask you. Who's invisible in your life? Who's sitting at the table, being talked about instead of talked to? Who's been reduced to a label, deaf, shy, poor, different, while everything they really are goes unnoticed? What would it cost you to see them? What would it change if you did? I don't know your answer. But I know this. The moment you start seeing people, really seeing them, you become different. The world becomes different. And sometimes, in ways you never expect, your whole life changes. Mine did. Because I talked to a woman everyone else ignored. Because I used a language my grandmother taught me. Because I was quiet enough to be kind. That's not a fairy tale. That's just attention. And it's something we can all give. This is Reality Voice. If this story made you think about who you're not seeing, or who hasn't seen you, you're supposed to be here. Leave a comment. Tell me about a moment when someone finally saw you, or a moment when you saw someone else. And if you're still here, still sitting with this, subscribe. Because these stories aren't about billionaires. They're about attention. And that's something we all have the power to give.